Let us come ahead now. In the previous session, we had started talking about the concept of subsidiary book. We started discussing about the very first subsidiary book, that is purchase book. In fact, I had mentioned a point that it is not necessary that we should prepare only the subsidiary books that we have been discussing about. We can prepare any of the subsidiary books for any kind of transactions that we have. There is no restriction on that we should prepare the subsidiary book only with reference to the purchase book, purchase return, sales return, or cash in bank. We can prepare for any other transactions which is of recurring nature, which we are having in the large numbers. And if those all transactions are of similar nature, then for those kind of transactions also we can have a subsidiary book. Like you'll be learning, there is a concept called as bill of exchange. In that, if you draw the bill on someone, or if you receive the bill from someone in the form of endorsement, now what that is, we'll be talking about that. That is called as the bill receivable. If you frequently receive the bills, then in that case, for that purpose, you can prepare the bills receivable book. If a business is continuously accepting the bills for many of the organizations, then in that case, you can prepare the bills payable book also. And that's why I said that it is not necessary that you should be preparing only and only the subsidiary books that we have been discussing about. You can prepare the subsidiary book for any and every kind of transaction. The only condition is what? That the number of transactions should be large. There has to be the frequency of it, and there has to be the recurrence of it. So if the same kind of transaction is happening again and again, in that case, you'll be preparing a separate subsidiary book for such kind of transactions. It's as simple as that. Now, the next point that we have to talk about is the format of purchase book. And at the same time, we'll also be talking about the next set of subsidiary books. In the previous session, we had talked about the concept of purchase book. We talked about what all transactions we can record in the purchase book. We talked about that in what way we do the posting of the transactions which are recorded in the purchase book. Yep. So what way we do the posting of the transactions that we have recorded here? All the transactions which are recorded in the purchase book individually are posted to the credit of the respective supplier account. And the total of this purchase book is debited to the purchase account. Please understand, my dear friends, why are we preparing the separate purchase account? Even though the total of purchase book is giving us the total amount of purchases, please understand and remember this forever. Purchase book gives us only the credit purchase ka total and not the cash purchases ka total. The cash purchases we have already observed are recorded in the cash book and not in the purchase book. And therefore, if you want to have all the purchases for the year, you need to prepare a separate purchase account. And that's what we have been doing here. So, If I just draw the format of my purchase book, my purchase book looks something like this. Purchase book in which we'll be having the columns for date, we'll have the column for bill number, particulars, and amount. All right. Date, invoice number. In fact, I'm not going to draw the format for all the subsidiary books. This being the first subsidiary book, that's why I'm drawing the format. For rest of those will understand simply that what are those, what will include, what will be included in that, and how will we do the posting of those all subsidiary books. Particulars and amount. Whatever things that you were recording in your journal, the same thing is what we are going to record in purchase book, but in a different format. यहां मुझे हर बार ये लिखने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी परचेस अकाउंट डेबिट, परचेस अकाउंट डेबिट, परचेस अकाउंट डेबिट. Some part of my narration is already been covered in my invoice number column, so I'll not be required to write a detailed narration being and all that. That's what is the benefit of preparing the purchase book, that whatever was the duplication that was happening, that duplication is getting removed with the help of purchase book being a separate subsidiary book. All right. Let's say in this case on 5th of June 2020, against the invoice number 1528, we made the purchase from Lakshmi of 10,000. On 11th June 2020, against the invoice number 695, we purchased the goods from Narayan of 50,000. On 18th June 2020, we purchased the goods all against invoice number 965 from Ramanan of say rupees 30,000, 32,000. On 25th of June 2020, that is today, against the invoice number 688, we made a purchase from Gyanam of 28,000. All right. My total purchases being rupees 1,20,000. है वो मुझे पता है. Now, how will I do the, now what I've done is I've recorded the transactions. All the transactions are recorded after subtracting the trade discount. If there are any details of the transaction given, then in that case, I'll record that, I'll write that in the particulars column itself. Details in a sense that I have purchased the different products, or there can be some trade discount. These all things will come in my particulars column. Now, these all individual transactions will be posted to the credit of respective supplier account. All right. And this total will be posted to debit of purchase account. Is it right? So what all accounts we need to prepare in this case? I'll prepare the small accounts just for the sake of understanding. We'll have the account of Lakshmi. We'll have the account of Narayan. We'll have the account of Ramanan. We'll also have the account of Gyanam. And we'll have one more account for purchases. All right. So my accounts are Lakshmi account, Narayan account, Ramanan account, and we'll also have the account for Gyanam. And the last account that we'll have will be for purchases. That is purchase account. Is it right? In the Lakshmi account, onto the credit side, I'll be writing what? 5th June 20 by purchase rupees 10,000. Correct? In Narayan account on credit side, 11th June 20 by purchase account rupees 50,000. In Ramanan account credit side, 18th June. In the examination, if this kind of question comes, generally not expected, but if at all, you're not supposed to prepare it in this format, in this short format. You have to prepare the accounts properly because the question will be focused only on that. Here we are doing it just for the sake of understanding. By purchase rupees 32,000. In fact, in the May batch, I'm talking about the rectification of errors. There, this particular thing is very much applicable because it is dependent on this topic only. That is subsidiary book. By purchase rupees 28,000. Correct? Now I need to give the debit effect also. That will be on 30th June 2020, assuming the whole month is over, to sundry creditors or to sundries rupees 1,20,000. Why I'm using the term sundries? Because there are multiple creditors which have merged together, which have clubbed together. That's why I'm using the term as sundry creditors. Is it right? So this is how you prepare the purchase book. Now in some cases, a business may be dealing into the multiple products. I hope this is going right for everyone, whatever I've been talking about. If anyone has a question in the meantime, you can just ask those before I go ahead. You can just put forth if you have any kind of questions on these subsidiary books or the purchase book that I just talked about. Okay. So let me come ahead then. When a business is dealing in multiple of products or group of products, In such case, you may find a situation where you want to have the separate record for the different purchases of different products. हो सकता है क्यों? क्योंकि बिजनेस चाहता है कि हमें अलग अलग प्रोडक्ट के या अलग अलग ग्रुप ऑफ प्रोडक्ट के परचेसेस अलग अलग मिलने चाहिए। मान लो कोई एक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक का शॉप है wherein he's keeping the home appliances as well as office appliances and some electronic gadgets like laptops, computers, etc. तो वो सोचता है कि मुझे होम अप्लायंसेस का रिकॉर्ड अलग मिलना चाहिए, मुझे ऑफिस अप्लायंसेस का रिकॉर्ड अलग मिलना चाहिए। I want to find out the profitability of my home appliances business. I want to find out the profitability of my office appliances business, the electronic gadgets business. तो अगर आपको इन सब अलग अलग एक्टिविटीज में से अलग अलग प्रॉफिट कैलकुलेट करना है तो आपको इनका रिकॉर्ड भी अलग अलग ही मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा। एंड फॉर दैट पर्पस we prepare a columnar purchase book. So whenever a business wants, it is not necessary that they should prepare the purchase book in only the format that we just discussed. The business can have the separate columns for the variety of the transactions or the variety of the products in the purchase book or in the sales book. And when they're preparing this columnar purchase book, in that case, what we prepare is the columnar purchase book. Business want separate record for different products or group. Some additional amounts are charged in the invoice like packing charges, freight, taxes, etc. For these separate charges, also separate record need to be kept. For these separate charges also, you need to maintain the separate record. In the above cases, we prepare columnar purchase book. Columnar purchase book. And what do we do with the columnar purchase book? All the transactions which are recorded individually are posted to the credit of respective supplier account. वहां कोई फर्क नहीं है. But instead of posting the total of amount column, we do the posting of the individual column to the debit of respective account. So if I'm preparing a columnar purchase book wherein I'm preparing the separate column for, say, product A, product B, product C, in that case, the total of product A column will be posted to the product A purchase account. Total of product B will be posted to the product B purchase account. Total of product C will be posted to the debit of the purchase, product C purchase account separately. In that case, I am not going to do the posting of the total of all these into a single purchase account. Which means what? Whenever we have prepared a columnar or an analytical purchase book, in such cases, we will not have a single purchase account, we'll have the multiple purchases accounts. All right. Similarly, if there are any charges being levied like purchase expenses, freight, transport charges, taxes, we need to keep the record for these all items separately. मेरे लिए मेरे बिजनेस का परचेस अलग है, परचेस रिलेटेड एक्सपेंसेस अलग है. The goods that I purchased is separate and the taxes that I've been paying on that is separate. And therefore, I want to maintain the separate record for purchases, for transport, and for taxes. So when I prepare the purchase book, in that case, I'm expected to prepare it on a columnar basis within which I'll have separate column for purchase transactions. I'll have separate column for the purchase expenses, freight, transport, etc. And I'll have the separate column for taxes. And then when I'm doing the posting, I'll be doing the posting of individual item column to the respective item debit side. All right. Posting of columnar purchase book. Debit instead of single purchase account, we have multiple products purchase account. Total of each product column or each column separately total will be posted to the debit of respective account. All right. Similarly, my credit posting effect will not have any kind of impact in this. Credit will be what? individual transaction, which we were doing till now, individual transaction to respective supplier account. This is what we were doing till now. The same thing we are going to continue even in the columnar purchase book. What was the purpose of columnar purchase book? Was only to have the separate record for each transaction. You want to have the detailed record for each product or group of product, and that's why you are maintaining what? The columnar purchase book. Am I clear for everyone? So this was about the concept of purchase book. What we need to talk about now is the concept of sales book. I hope I'm going right for everyone. What I would suggest today is you go back when you start doing your studies, especially related to the basics of accounts or the accounting part, whatever we have finished already. You just run through it and try to find out, try to observe that what are the things those are troubling you the most. And in our next session, we'll first deal with those all things first. And then we'll be continuing with our next part of our discussion. For now, we'll continue with the subsidiary books. We'll finish with the subsidiary books. But today you have to do this as an exercise. Because what happens is we are attending the sessions. In those sessions, we are having the confidence when we are attending it. But unless and until you practice it on your own, unless and until you observe it on your own, you don't get that kind of confidence, that kind of command on that particular point. And if you want to have that, for that purpose, I suggest that you try to find out that what are the things still which are troubling you, which are still having the problems, which are still having the difficulties, which is not going away. And you summarize those all and bring it in the next session. We'll be dealing with that in a very separate part. As far as the columnar purchase book is concerned, the format will look like what? If I just pick up this same format, we'll have the format something like this for a columnar purchase book. So you'll have what? You will have these all basic columns as it is, that is date, invoice number, particulars. And then you'll have the column for amount, in which you are going to mention the total of that particular invoice. Whatever is the total that you have dealt with for that particular transaction, that will be mentioned in that. And then the next column that you'll be having will be for the individual products. Like, let's say this is product A column, product B column, product C column, and I'm having a separate column for freight as well, right? So I'll have the column for amount, that is the total of that particular invoice. I'll have the column for product A, product B, product C, and I'm having the column for freight in this. Now what is happening, understand my dear friends, when I'm preparing these all columns, The very basic purpose, the very basic reason behind preparing these all columns is what? I want to know what is the total purchase of A. I want to know what is the total purchase of B. I want to know what is the total purchase of C. And how much is the total purchase expense that I've incurred till date. For that purpose, I've prepared this columnar purchase book. Now, when I'm doing the posting of the columnar purchase book, I will not be considering the total of the amount column. I'll ignore the total of this column. I'll take the total of A column, total A. I'll take the total of B column, that is total B. I'll take the total of C column, that is total C. And I'll take the total of freight column, total freight. जहां तक क्रेडिट की बात है, this is not having any kind of problem. These all transactions will be posted to the credit of respective account. Correct or not? With which amount? With the amount of amount column. But जब debit की बात आएगी तो instead of posting the debit of amount column, I'll be posting the debit to what? These totals of respective column to A's account, to B's account, to C's account, and to freight account. So that's the difference between the simple purchase book and the columnar purchase book. Am I right? Okay. Fine. Now let me come ahead to understand that what is a sales book. Sales book. Friends, the name itself suggests it. The book that is maintained to record the sale of goods. What kind of sale of goods? To record the credit sale of goods. Again, a question arises, why only the credit sales? Because for the cash sales, we already have what? The cash book. And therefore, what we are going to record in the sales book is only the credit sale of goods. Similarly, cash sales, similar to purchase book, to be recorded in cash book. And on top of that, if there is a sale of asset, whether it is for cash or credit, it will never come in my sales book because sales book include only the sale of goods. The sale of assets is primarily recorded either in cash book or in journal proper, may be dependent upon the nature of transaction. If it's a cash transaction, it will go into the cash book. If it's a credit transaction, it will go into the journal proper. So that's how you're going to prepare the sales book or the transactions related to sales book. What will be the posting of my sales book? Posting effects of sales book are debit. Because my credit sales ka journal entry is customer account debit to sales account, which means in my sale transaction, my customer need to be debited or not. Therefore, debit posting of this will be what? Individual transactions. To respective customer account. Individual transaction is posted to the debit of respective customer account, whereas the credit posting effect is what? Total of amount column or individual product column. कब? जब आप कॉलमनर सेल्स बुक बनाओगे तो product column, that is in columnar sales book. To the credit of sales account. करेक्ट? तो जब भी आप सेल्स बुक बनाओगे तो उसका पोस्टिंग विल बी एग्जैक्टली रिवर्स ऑफ योर परचेज बुक. क्यों? क्योंकि परचेज बुक के ट्रांजैक्शन में आपके सप्लायर्स आर द गिवर्स ऑफ बेनिफिट एंड देयरफॉर सप्लायर्स आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू बी क्रेडिटेड. Whereas आपके सेल के ट्रांजैक्शन में कस्टमर्स आर द रिसीवर ऑफ बेनिफिट, देयरफॉर कस्टमर्स आर टू बी डेबिटेड. That's the point of difference between your purchase book and the sales book. Therefore, when you did the posting from the purchase book, the totals were posted to the debit and individual transactions were posted to the credit. But when you are doing the posting from the sales book, the individual transactions are posted to the debit and the totals are posted to the credit of sales account. That's the point that we are supposed to remember. All right. Now I need to talk about one more concept, that is a debit note, and I also need to talk about the concept of credit note. I hope I'm going good for everyone, because the things are more conceptual and therefore we need to be more focused on all these things. Because once we have understood these all concepts in detail, once we have gone through all these things in detail, once we are understanding this, then even in our real life, the accounting becomes very simpler for us. We need not worry about that what is to be debited, what is to be credited, how am I going to debit, how am I going to credit. These all questions are sorted out or answered automatically. Let me come ahead now. What is a debit note and what is a credit note? Let's observe that. A debit note is a document issued by a customer to his supplier. Whereas a credit note is issued by supplier to buyer, that is to the customer, buyer or customer. Now, when will I issue the debit note? Whenever I have debited my supplier's account in my books of accounts for any purpose other than the payment being made to him. Because when I'm making the payment to my supplier, at that time, I'm already having a document in my hand in the form of the cash receipt or in the form of check from that supplier, to that supplier. जब मैं उसको कैश में पेमेंट करता हूं तो सप्लायर मुझे रिसीट इशू करता है। जब मैं उसको चेक से इशू करता हूं या चेक्स देता हूं तो इन दैट केस आई एम हैविंग चेक एज अ रेफरेंस। बट इफ आई एम रिटर्निंग द गुड्स टू माय सप्लायर, if there is a purchase return, or in some cases if there is a kind of rate difference, मुझे मेरे सप्लायर ने एक अमाउंट बताई थी और चार्ज मेरी दूसरी अमाउंट कर दी, so there is a rate difference, or in some cases the supplier had promised me to allow some kind of additional benefit in the form of scheme, in the form of discount. That scheme discount will be adjusted through these debit notes. There can also be a situation where my supplier has charged me the lesser amount than expected. In that case, I may be issuing the credit note, but that's very rare kind of circumstance. So it is issued to provide details to suppliers on what account, for what purpose, supplier is debited in the books of customer, other than payments. क्योंकि पेमेंट के केस में तो सप्लायर डेबिट होगा ही होगा, you'll be passing the entry supplier account debit to cash oblique bank account, बट उसके अलावा किस वजह से डेबिट हो रहा है तो उसका डिटेल हम किसके द्वारा देंगे, डेबिट नोट. Similarly, when supplier is issuing the credit note to the buyer, it provides information to the buyer regarding the credits given by supplier other than for receipt, other than for receipts. If at all your account has been credited, in that case it will be, the supplier will be issuing what, the credit note. For what purpose you issue the debit note? Maybe the purchase return primarily, or even for rate differences, or even for any kind of incentives. So basically, to adjust the accounts, you issue the debit or credit notes. Similarly, even the even the credit note is issued for the sales return, or for that matter, the rate difference or incentives. So whenever the supplier want to adjust the account of buyer, or the buyer want to adjust the account of supplier, in that case also the document that you issue is the debit or credit note, and this document becomes the base for recording the various transactions in your purchase return book or in the sales return book. Now, how do we prepare these purchase and sales return book? And what is this cash book? This all we'll be talking about in tomorrow's session. We'll meet at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you very much.